Hey everyone, welcome to the Felicity Yarn Studio channel. If you're new here, my name is Zoe. This is where I like to share. Oliver, you're bad. He's a diva. He needs his 15 minutes of fame as well. Hey everybody, welcome to the Felicity Yarn Studio channel. If you're new here, my name is Zoe. This is where I like to share all of the things that I make with yarn and also all of the yarn that I make from wool fiber. Anyway, that's to say that this is a knitting and spinning podcast primarily. I also sometimes dabble in crochet and I dye yarn as well. So if you're a returning viewer, you are probably already familiar with all of those things. And of course, if you want to find me on social media, all that jazz, links to everything that I talk about today, that will all be in the description box down below. And I'm sure I've put it on the screen somewhere for you guys to see right now. So how has everyone been? I feel like every time I sit down to record, I'm like, yeah, it's been busy the last few weeks, which of course it has been. But I've been doing good. I have very minimal knitting to share with you guys today, but quite a lot of spinning. My spinning mojo has been where it's at lately. But before I get into all of that, I do just have a couple of things to talk about up top. First is I did my 500 subscriber giveaway on my last podcast episode a couple weeks ago. The prize for that giveaway are these two beautiful skeins of Spectrum fiber in the canary colorway. And I pulled these from my stash. They are absolutely gorgeous. I kind of went a little overboard on her monthly club that she was doing last year. I don't think she's doing it this year. I bought like 2 skeins every month from her. But anyway, I apologize. I actually need to pull a winner for these skeins of yarn. I meant to do that before I sat down. So I'll pop something at the end of the video announcing the winner. So stay tuned for that. And of course, thank you guys so much to everyone who has entered, subscribed, who supports the channel. You know that I really appreciate it. I love having this space. I feel like between me and Naomi, she's my sister, she's the yarn curator, between our two little channels, we've started this little circle of internet friends and it's kind of warm and fuzzy. And then of course, all of the subscribers as well. You know, I love having you guys along for my journey. I'm sure Naomi appreciates you guys too. So the second thing that I wanted to mention up top is me and Naomi are going to be participating in a knit along that's being hosted by Nikki, who has the Knitting with Cat Hair podcast, one of those internet friends that I mentioned just now. But she is hosting a Year of Marie Wallin knit along. I think that's the official name. Anyway, I'm super excited. It is running from August 1st, 2021, I guess, to August 1st, 2022. I need to go check on those details. But yes, the only requirement, I believe, is that you knit a Marie Wallin pattern. I'm not sure. I think she's just hosting it on Instagram. So if you do want to join in, contact one of us. I know Alexandra of November Woods podcast is joining, and Cher, who has the Lathe and Loom podcast, she is also going to be participating in this. So hey guys, I just wanted to pop in here real quick. I just wanted to say that like literally as soon as I was done recording, Nikki put into the group chat that, you know, if you're interested in joining the knit along, to let any of us know. And I don't know if she has to add you to the group chat on Instagram, but she has a thread on Ravelry going, but also there's a group chat on Instagram. There may be some Zoom calls or something like that in the future for this knit along. So just drop a comment down below or hit one of us up on Instagram. We'll figure out a way to get you guys in the conversation if you're going to join us on this Marie Wallin knit along. I hemmed and hawed for like, I don't know, over a month trying to decide what pattern I wanted to make. I settled on the Primrose jumper because it is just an absolutely gorgeous all over color work jumper, and that has always been one of my bucket list knits. I've always wanted to do kind of a traditional all over color work jumper and just never had the motivation, had the gumption to get one done. So I bit the bullet because of the way that Marie Wallen sells her patterns. I think because this is one of her newer ones, you either have to buy the book or a kit from her website. Everything was sold out here in the US, so I just went on ahead and ordered the kit from her for like the traditional or the original palette. I think she has 2 different palettes for this jumper. So it is absolutely gorgeous. I did that yesterday. Today is August 2nd, so I think I'm gonna need every little bit of 365 days to get this jumper done, but I'm really looking forward to sinking my teeth into it. I have not bought a ton of yarn this year. Actually, this month I bought 2 sweater quantities worth of yarn. That was one of them, and something that I'll show you guys in a little bit. But I think that might have been part of what was dragging my knitting mojo down, is I haven't been buying yarn, and maybe that sounds like an excuse or a cop-out, but I do feel a little bit more rejuvenated, and I'm really looking forward to casting that on. I am going to go ahead and jump into knitting for you guys. I have my notes down here. Kind of a pitiful amount of knitting has been done in the last month since I recorded. So the first thing that I want to talk about, I haven't even actually cast on yet, but I wanted to go ahead and bring it up because I had mentioned wanting to find a pattern for this Kindred Red and the crystalline colorway. I have caked up 3 of my 5 skeins for this, and I started to do some swatching. Right after I recorded, I was pattern browsing for literally weeks, trying to find a cardigan pattern that would showcase this beautiful yarn, because I decided that I did want a cardigan out of this. I don't have very many cardigans, so I thought that would be a good use for this yarn. And so I kind of looked at a couple of patterns similar to the ones that Naomi's been knitting, where you hold a strand of mohair or Surrey alpaca, because I kind of thought, since this is very, what's the right word? This is a very busy, it's a very funky yarn. I don't have a problem with that. I don't know. I was kind of curious to see how it would play with mohair and alpacas. I swatched up this one first. This is with the Surrey alpaca, and then this is with the mohair. And honestly, it kind of muted out the yarn too much for me. You know, at the end of the day, I bought this yarn because I really like this vibrancy to it. So you know what, I'm gonna let it be itself and sing and be a showstopper. So I settled on the Aurea cardigan. I feel like a bit of a dunce right now because I took Latin in high school, and it's the Latin word for gold, and I know I'm butchering the pronouncement right now. But anyway, that is a pattern by Megan Nodecker of Pip and Pin. And so I swatched up finally just in plain old stockinette flat. So I haven't cast on yet because I kind of got sidetracked casting something else on, but that is in my plans. I kind of need to free some needles up too, I think, to get this going. So once I kind of settled on what I wanted to do with that yarn, as I was caking up that yarn, I just decided to cake up a couple of other things that have been sitting around that I've wanted to get to and just kept putting off. So the yarn in question is from Farmer's Daughter Fibers. This is her Moon Sisters base. It is 75% merino, 20% nylon, 5% stellina, and this is the colorway Willow. It's a fingering weight yarn. The stellina in this is actually a reddish tint. I have not ever seen that on any other base, but I cast on the Bennett Sisters shawl. That is a Pride and Prejudice inspired shawl by Lindsay Fowler. So the premise behind the shawl and the way that it is worked up, you use 2 similar skeins or 2 of the same color. These are both the same colorway, but they are ever so slightly different. So I never really knew what to do with these. I picked them up when she did a trunk show at Black Mountain Yarn Shop a couple years ago, and they were the last two that she had. But yeah, they're the same colorway, but this one is just a smidge darker than this one. And again, the way that you work the shawl, start at one corner of the shawl here, and you're working out to the longest point, the middle. And then as you come back and work the second half, you hold a strand of mohair with the second half of yarn. So I think I had the idea to knit this shawl out of this yarn for at least a year now, because a year ago I dyed up some mohair silk just to try to match this as close as possible, kind of similar to the puce color that I dyed up for my spring sorrel that I knit a few months ago. But yeah, I think that this is going to make a really lovely, nice, large, squishy shawl. It is a lot of garter and stockinette, flat back and forth, which is fine. And it is meant to utilize like as much of this yarn as possible. I got to the point where I started doing some of the flat stockinette here. I guess I'm probably about a quarter to a third of the way through the first half of the shawl. Not going to do that math. I kind of got sucked into this at first and then put it down because it wasn't super holding my attention, being just kind of plain stockinette and garter. But I'm not really in a huge rush to get this knit. It's just kind of one of those boredom knits, to borrow a phrase from Gemma of Gemma B Knits. I know Naomi has adopted that, and I'll get to my next boredom knit in a second here. Other than that, I mean, I'm really enjoying it. This yarn is super squishy and super gorgeous. Sparkle yarn isn't normally my jam, but I feel like this is so subtle and like it doesn't even really sparkle. There's just like a hint of it if you're really looking for it there. So the only thing that I did not do is there's optional tassels on each end and the triangle point. The designer recommends, you know, winding off that yarn and making your tassels first. That way you can make the shawl as large as possible with the yarn that you have. I'm kind of living a little bit dangerously here. I think I will just try to stop with like 5 or 6 grams left. And then make my tassels at the end. We shall see. I kind of want to see how big it gets before I decide. It won't be the end of the world to me if it doesn't get tassels, and if nothing else, I can find something similar to make tassels if I really want them. I don't know. In general, I like tassels. I like fringe. I like a little bit of embellishment on my knits, but you know, just kind of going with the flow here to see where it takes me. So up next in the boredom knits category, I started knitting another plain vanilla sock. This is out of more hand spun yarn. This is the nest egg colorway from Wound Up Fiber Arts that I spun earlier this year. And I really love how this yarn is working up. But again, it's just a vanilla sock. So this yarn came out almost closer to a lace weight or a very light fingering weight yarn. I got over 500 yards out of this. So I am using size 0 needles. Is that 2 millimeters? Yes, 2 millimeters. And so I knit them magic loop. I did them toe up. I did the twisty bind off, Lori's twisty bind off. I think that's the one that Naomi recommended to me a while ago. I think I did 68 stitches instead of my normal 72 stitches. That just seemed to be what was fitting my foot when I slid it on, you know, when I tried it on from the toe up. I really had intentions of finishing this heel last night, but it just did not happen. We went back east the weekend before last for my brother-in-law's birthday. Got to see my nieces. So yeah, this was my main car knitting. Not a whole lot to write home about here, but I just thought that I would share that with you guys. Hopefully by the next time I record, I will have my second sock done. So yes, this was the closest thing that I had to a finished object today to share with you guys. I did do a little bit of other knitting while we were traveling, and I cast on this hat. This is the Cheering hat. This is by Helen Stewart, and this was one of her part of her pattern collection for Advent knitting last year. I think there's like 4 or 5 patterns that she usually releases, with those one pattern a week leading up to Christmas or the holiday season. I don't remember exactly. It's like before December though, maybe so you can do your knitting in December. Anyway, this hat was part of that package, and they're all mystery patterns. So this is one of my colorways. This is Glow Bug, and it is really beautiful. This is a DK weight base. It's 100% superwash merino. I really wanted to knit up a sample in this colorway because it's one of my favorite things that I've dyed up. I think it's so cute. Now, I gotta admit though, I'm not loving the pooling. I'm not a huge fan of pooling in my knitting. I'm very picky about it. So I kind of really like the way that the brim worked up. It is a twisted rib brim there. I think I'm doing the adult small size hat, and it was just gonna go into my gift pile, maybe for one of my nieces. But I'm kind of thinking I'm gonna rip back. I kind of am thinking I'm gonna do an all over ribbed hat so I can kind of get that, break up that pulling a little bit more. Since this is twisted rib, I'll just rip back to that ribbing and then just continue in regular rib. I'm not going to do twisted ribbing through the whole hat. But I will say I am thoroughly enjoying knitting these cables here. So they're very simple, very easy 3x3 cables. And I will be knitting a hat with this pattern for myself because I don't have anything kind of basic with some cables. Might be a good Christmas knit pattern. So yeah, I feel like this is kind of a fail. This is another thing that I don't know, it's just not really working for me, and I'm okay with ripping it back. I feel like life is too short to really knit with stuff that you're unhappy with, or to make things that you don't love. So even though it's a sample, even though it might be a gift, yeah, I guess I'm a perfectionist and I want it to be the way that I want it to be. So this is probably going to get frogged and reworked in a little bit. The final thing that I have been working on the last week or so is my new cast on, and this is the start of my outline tee that is by Jessie Made Designs. And I really wanted to do a summer knit, something in cotton or linen, and this t-shirt really caught my eye. I really like the shape of it and the light kind of feel of it, so I actually wound up ordering the yarn that it's designed in. I think this might be a first for me in knitting something in the yarn that it was actually designed in. I am using Ritual Dyes. This is in their Undine base. It is a 4-ply fingering weight, 60% organic cotton, 40% linen. Fingering weight, it's 382 yards for 100 grams. This is the Prairie Flax colorway. So it is a lovely shade of kind of light sky blue. I've been really drawn to this color in the last year or so. So I am currently trying to alternate skeins since I'm just about done with my first one here. It's been kind of a struggle since the linen and cotton, the cakes tend to like to collapse on themselves when you've used them quite a bit. This has been quite a enjoyable knit, just stockinette in the round from the bottom up. The linen cotton blend has not been rough on my hands at all. I can occasionally feel it on my pinky where I tend to like hold and rest my needle, but I actually have a bit of a callus there now from all of the knitting that I do. But yeah, I'm really enjoying this. Again, if you've not seen the pattern, there's 4 spots on the top, so 8 stitches all together, I think, that you drop at the end, so it opens up. So there's a detail down here on the front and a matching one on the back, and then on the sides I think it follows the V-neck as well, and on the sleeve. So I don't know, maybe that's more than 8, But I'm just talking about the body right now. And it is a crop design. Like I said, I've got a couple of linen skirts that I like wearing with cropped things now. My opinions on silhouettes and things are changing. I'm actually really enjoying modified crops. I don't want something that's like right underneath, you know, where my boobs fall, but you know, I think I have a bit of a longer torso, so something that kind of falls not quite to my hip, but a little bit above that, but not on my belly button either. So if that makes sense. I think the pattern calls for a body length of about 8.5, maybe 9 inches. And I think that'll be a good length for me. Once again, there was a twisted rib detail here at the bottom. I love the look of a twisted rib, but I absolutely hate knitting it. I just feel like it takes forever to get done. She didn't specify a specific cast on, so I just did a long tail cast on with that. I did have a couple of issues with gauge in that my swatch actually shrunk a little bit when I blocked it. I think it's gonna be okay though. I think I decided to go up a size to compensate for that rather than change the needle size, because I did like the fabric that I was getting. I didn't want to go up a needle size and get anything much looser because I mean, it's not see-through, but it is also, it's already a little bit open. So I don't want to have to wear an undershirt with this since it is meant to be a light summer top. So I'm really loving this. It's kind of what has re-sparked my mojo. Again, it was a pattern that I had my eye on for a while since it came out. I actually think it only came out a couple months ago, but you know, ever since then, I've really been wanting to make some kind of light summer tops and knit with some summer yarn. So again, rejuvenating my stash and treating myself to some new yarn since I've been so good this year on not buying yarn. So it's been a real pleasure to cast on and treat myself and enjoy this knit. So that's it for knitting. I have a boatload of spinning to share with you guys. Not a boatload, a basket full. A basket load. So most of this was spun during Tour de Fleece. Let me start pre-Tour de Fleece, however. This is the BFL silk that was a natural gray color that I told y'all I was gonna dye. I mentioned that I had wanted to try breaking some dye with this since it does have silk in it, and dyes tend to strike on silk faster than on wool. However, I just kind of dumped a bunch of leftover greens and blues into the pot with this and just let it do its thing. So I'm really pleased with how this turned out. It is absolutely gorgeous. I don't know if the kind of like sheen comes through on camera. It's just a really lovely sage green kind of color. So that's all I'm really going to say about this. I kind of talked about my yardage and my spinning experience on a previous episode. But yeah, I just wanted to share this with you guys, and I think I'm going to knit socks with this eventually. It'll go in my sock yarn bin for now. So Tour de Fleece. Basically everything except for these was all Tour de Fleece spinning in here. So the first thing that I started with was this Rambouillet spin. Sorry, Gemma. Gemma of the Gemma V Makes podcast was saying she got a hard time for calling it Rambouillet. I guess if you actually know French and French pronunciations, it's Rambouillet. I don't know. Sorry. So these are from Apothecary Fiber, and I ordered the Moonbeam colorway. I ordered 2 skeins from her, and I had talked about last time how I felt like one skein or one braid was different from the other one. I think maybe I got 2 different colorways by accident, which is fine. I went with it. I had spun up the first bobbin and the first braid. So this is a total of 8 ounces. So I had spun the first 4 ounces completely end to end to get long transitions of colorway. And then the second one, I stripped down, I don't know, probably into like 12 tiny little strips. So I would get fast repeats of color on that second bobbin to get kind of a fractal-esque spin. I'm not sure if technically you have to do a 3-ply for it to be a fractal. I mean, I don't see why the 2-ply wouldn't be considered a fractal. But I was doing kind of a modified woolen spun yarn because I have plans to use it with, I know I pulled this out. I have plans to use it with this Nightshades. Now, as I was spinning it up and kind of plying it together, I was getting a little bit concerned that it was going to be too dark because I want to use the hand spun as the contrast color for all of the color work in the Tecumseh by Caitlin Hunter. I'm not going to worry about doing two different colorways for the two different motifs that are in that sweater. So actually, like, seeing them side by side, this is the first time that I've pulled this out since I finished the spin. I think that it's gonna be okay as far as contrastingness goes. The only thing that I'm now worried about is I might have spun this a little bit thin. I have set the twist on these, so they have kind of plumped up, I think, as much as they're gonna plump up, at least in skein form. I mean, it is pretty close to a DK weight, but it might be more like a sport weight yarn. This is DK. This colorway is called Last Call. And so this is approximately 250 yards for 100 grams. I got a total of 1,300 yards out of these two 8 ounces, which is approximately 230 grams, I believe. I don't know. I can just tell by looking at it that there are spots that look a little bit thinner than this commercially spun yarn. Not the end of the world. I think I just need to swatch to reassure myself that this is all going to work out fine. The other thing I was thinking about, if I'm knitting with this and I get to those really dark parts and it's not contrasting as much as I would like, I'm not opposed to cutting my yarn and getting to the part that I want to make it work. Most of the time that would kind of bother me, but I don't know. I think I'm going to have more than enough yarn here. I think I need something like 800 yards. So I've got a whole extra 500 yards here if I need it. So that was first on my Tour de Fleece spinning. Since I had already done 4 ounces of this, I only counted 4 ounces on my second single and then the yardage for plying it together. So I'll save my grand total yardage reveal for the end. Spoiler alert, for those of you who watch me and Naomi and Gemma, we were in kind of just a friendly competition who could spin the most yardage, and I'm pretty sure that I won. I never win anything, so I don't know what I win. I guess bragging rights for 2021. So once I finished that, I moved on to another project that was already kind of half spun that I wanted to clear my bobbins with. And that is these kind of peachy, pinky tones. The package says that it was merino, but it's quite scratchy from merino. So I'm actually thinking this was needle felting yarn that Naomi gave me. Because the package also said something about them being skin tone colors. So anyway, these were 4 colors of like peach, pink, beige, and then a really white-ish kind of shade. I took them, and back in March when I got my blending board, I made some roll-ags out of them just because I was practicing. I wasn't very good at making the roll-ags. I'm still not great at it, but I am getting a little bit better. Yeah, I just kind of made them in like gradient shade. And again, I kind of went for a 2-ply fractal spin here. So I spun 1 bobbin just end to end the roll-ags. And then I had made essentially a bat on the blending board for the second half of the fiber. It was way too much fiber for the blending board, and I kind of learned from that. So it was a really rough spin. Again, this isn't super soft yarn. It'll probably just wind up going in my hand spun blanket pile that one day I'll have enough yarn to start making a blanket with. I'll just, you know, random hodgepodge hand spun skeins yarn. For this, I wound up with a total of 187 yards. Again, I counted 2 out of the 3, you know, sections of spinning that I did for this for Tour de Fleece. So also backtracking a little bit, I had mentioned on the last podcast how I wanted to spin up that 2 pounds of Rambouillet for my dream cable knit, and that did not happen. I didn't bring the bobbin up here, I don't think. But I wanted to spin that on my ladybug, and I am so out of practice on my ladybug since I got the electric eel wheel. I've been spinning literally everything on that. I've just been plying on my ladybug. I could not get myself to spin a single on the ladybug to save my life. I don't know. I don't know what has happened. I've lost my kind of rhythm on there for spinning a single. Plying's not a problem. So I don't know. I'm going to have to get on there and find a time to slow down and enjoy that spin as a slow spin. I think what I really love about the eel wheel is it is a fast spin, kind of fast pace, and I can get my really thin yarns that I love. So now that I got that ramble out of the way, the next thing that I decided to spin was this lovely, lovely shade of lime green here. This was a braid from Wound Up Fiber Arts as well. Y'all are going to hear her name a lot more. I'm so sorry. I just love her fiber. It's dyed up so beautifully. If you're a spinner and you like spinning stock yarns or don't mind spinning with superwash or blends, she has more than that too, but that's just what I tend to go for. This was her colorway Glow Bug, 3-ply sock spin, and, or no, Lightning Bug, sorry. I got 645 yards out of this. Super thin, super light. I can probably get 2 pairs of socks for myself out of this. I love it so much. It's so neon-y and delicious. Once I was done with that, I went on to another braid from Wound Up. This is in her Sugar Plum colorway. This is a merino cashmere nylon blend. So this is also a 3-ply, but at this point I was kind of feeling like I wanted to spin something a little bit heavier. I did this on the e-wheel as well, and it came out closer to a DK weight, maybe a worsted weight yarn. My notes say that I got about 300 yards for this one. I really love how this spun up, and kind of when I was done spinning this, I knew that I wanted to knit something with it right away. So I have plans for this, and I'll get to that in just a second. I'll finish up all my tour de fleece spinning here real quick because it's not much more. So by the time I finished that, I think I only had like 1 or 2 days left before the tour was over, and I was really on a roll. I was in the zone dyeing yarn for advent calendars during those few weeks, and I was really in the spin zone. This was when I was constantly pattern browsing for a cardigan and just kind of swatching and not really knitting anything. For the last day or two, I just pulled out some random samples of yarn. I kind of went through my fiber stash. I had a bunch of samples of, I think these were all Rambouillet. There might be one little bit of Polworth in there. And I just threw them in the dye pot at the end of the day and kind of wound up with another mini kind of gradient with all of this. So I wound up with 75 yards of this. Since it was kind of gradient-ish, I decided to practice on doing a chain ply to practice getting the 3-ply chain ply. And I did it on my e-wheel as well, the plying. It went better than my first attempt at chain plying. I think what I don't like about chain plying is that it's a little bit slow for me, or at least right now it's slow for me. I haven't really gotten into a good rhythm, or maybe my setup isn't quite right. Whereas when I do a regular 2 or 3-ply, I'm just going like as fast as I can and pedaling as fast as I can. I have plied a few things on the e-wheel, but again, I don't think it can go as fast as I can on my ladybug, and I just really like to get into a rhythm on that. But yeah, I practice my chain plying here because I still have another large gradient that I really want to spin. I'm just really intimidated to apply it together and get it to a point where I feel like I can knit with it. The last thing that I worked on, I had this little sample from, I think it came from Spinning Mermaid. That's what the like kind of bright color, like primary color yellows and reds and blues and greens of the 2-ply is. The kind of lavender ply is actually alpaca. It was another little sample that I was gifted when I bought fiber from someone. I don't know. I had thrown it in the same dye pot as this bath, so that's why it came out light purple. And I don't know, I would never really have done anything with either one of these beforehand. So again, probably will go into my hand spun blanket pile. I think it's about 35, 37 yards that I got from this. I don't even know what weight it would be, probably sport to DK. So I really just kind of took the last few days of Tour de Fleece to go through my fiber stash, clear a bunch of things out. Back to my sweater spin. I am notorious for making goals and then immediately abandoning them. If I don't make myself a goal and I don't put pressure on myself, I tend to achieve things a lot more than if I'm like, I have to get this done. I don't know. I just kind of took it as an opportunity to just spin what I wanted to spin, since I really was enjoying spinning every single day during that. So all of that equaled 2,545 yards, and of that, 2,050 yards were spun exclusively during Tour de Fleece. So yay me. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed spinning daily. Kind of spun myself out a little bit. I'm going to show you guys what I have currently been working on. I kind of want to finish that, and then I'm ready to fall hard back into knitting. I always like having something on the wheel to go to when my brain just doesn't want to work, but as of right now, I really want to finish this current project. So I showed you Sugar Plum Fairy, or Sugar Plum. So I stared at this for a few days after I finished spinning it, and I was like, you know what I really want to knit is the Night Shift by Andrea Mowry. And I know there are tons of people knitting a night shift right now. So this is also from Wound Up Fiber Arts. I had just ordered it right after Tour de Fleece because it was my reward to myself. This is called Shadows, or Early Shadows. And so I spun this at about the same weight as Sugar Plum Fairy. Sugar Plum, not Fairy. It is, I have not set the twist on it, so that's why it looks a little bit scruffy up there. But before I spun this one, I went through some of the scrappy packs that I've gotten from Wound Up Fiber Arts, and this is kind of what they look like. You just get a bag full of little odds and ends and leftovers. So I went through, I had 2 of those packages. I went through and I kind of grouped together like all of the greens, all of the purpley pinks, and kind of the blues. And I spun up these little minis. They are potentially going to be used with this. I wanted another third full skein because I think you need about 900 yards. I think it's an Aran weight pattern, and mine are closer to worsted to DK, so I want to have a little extra yardage. Now this is where I'm kind of stalled out. I'm not sure if I love the little minis that I have left pulled out over here. I mean, I'll probably still spin them up because honestly, this is like a couple hours worth of spinning. And I'm not even sure that I love these 3 with these. I like the fact that I'll have them as options if I want them. I was thinking about it and I really wanted something maybe green to kind of balance that out. Pink and green is kind of pretty together. Maybe it's just the blue that's throwing me off of that. Yeah, I like that a whole lot. So I ordered 2 more braids from her, from Wound Up. I had this one in my stash called Take a Hint. And at first I thought that I didn't like it. So I ordered the 2 other braids. I ordered another green, and I think this one is called Sprout. It is merino cashmere silk. But I actually don't love this either. It's kind of a little bit too yellowy. I ordered some more, also in merino cashmere silk, because I kind of was thinking, oh, maybe the dark shade would be pretty with that. Nah, kind of not loving it either. So now I'm back to thinking I want this one because this green is a little bit more on the blue side. I actually think what's going to happen is I'm going to wind up spinning basically everything else that I have pulled aside here for this. And I'd rather have more things to choose from than less for that pattern. It is what it is. Honestly, with spinning at a heavier weight, at like a DK to worsted weight, it doesn't take nearly as long. Something like this is like a week-long spin for me. Something like this is like a 4-day spin for me. So yeah, I think I'm gonna spin up all 3 of those braids in that little last bit of mini scraps that I have, and then go from there and get me a night shift cast on. So that's basically it for all the things that I have been working on aside from dyeing yarn. I have dyed up a new colorway that I wanted to share with you guys because I love it. Can you tell I was inspired by that lightning bug colorway? I love lightning bugs, fireflies. I call them fireflies. We get a ton of them in our yard. We leave most of our yard kind of natural with leaf mold and, you know, leaves and everything everywhere. So we get tons of them in our yard. And I was really inspired by walking around the neighborhood in the summer evenings, watching the fireflies, and, you know, with twilight falling, I dreamed up speckling a colorway that kind of encapsulated that with the neons and some browns and blues, kind of evoking that dusky feeling. So I called this Summer Nights. The skein is staying with me. I don't know what I'm going to make it yet, but I do have some listed in the shop on these full-size sock yarn skeins, and I'm going to be adding it to my house favorite mini colorway sets. So that'll now include 7 minis. So it's Sugar and Spice, Stardust, Jazz Hands, Flipside, Robin's Egg, Summer Nights, oh, and Limoncello. I really love those little neon minis, and actually I don't know why my brain works like this, but 5:30 in the morning, I'm dead asleep, and I wake up and I'm like, wait, those minis would make the perfect Painting Bricks shawl by West Knits. So I had already planned on keeping one of those little mini sets back for myself as well to make a sample. So a Painting Bricks shawl might be in my future as well. Clearly you can tell the knitting mojo is coming back to me. I'm feeling inspired to knit all of the things and, you know, work with all of this new yarn. I've been busy in the dye pots with new stuff as well as advent calendars. I have about, I think I have like 12 or 13 20-gram advent calendars listed. That's the last of those. And then about 14 or so of the 10-gram sets left. So everything that's listed in the shop is the last of the listings that I'm doing for this year. They are Georgia O'Keeffe themed, so based on her paintings. She did more than just flower paintings, you guys. And for the record, it was men who decided that her paintings looked like lady bits, and she insisted that they were not. I think we should take the woman at her word and, you know, try to stop that myth. But anyway, she uses some really beautiful colors, and I've really enjoyed dyeing up the minis based off of her paintings and her work. I've had a couple of fails this year, I'm not going to lie, but when I went back and I was researching her a little bit more, another interesting thing that I discovered is she spent her entire career like mixing custom colors to get exactly the shade that she wants. So it was no surprise to me that a few times what I thought was going to happen in the dye pot did not reflect the picture that I was trying to recreate on yarn. But don't be worried, they look fantastic. I'm really pleased with how they're all coming out. The fails did not make it into the boxes. So I have 5 more minis, mini colors to dye up, and the full-size skeins to dye up, and then I will be done with those. I will start assembling them soon. So today is the 2nd of August. I'm anticipating having all of the dyeing done by the end of the month. So that'll give me like all of September to pack them up. I don't anticipate it will take me that long, but I'd rather give myself more time than less. They weren't really supposed to ship until the end of October, but again, I'm a little bit ahead of schedule right now, and I'd rather get them out sooner rather than later. So that's it for shop stuff, knitting, spinning. I'm gonna hop off of here real quick and put in the video for random comment generator to choose a winner for the giveaway, and I'll record a little something for that and pop it at the end here real quick. Thank you to everybody who entered the giveaway. The prompt was leave either your best or your worst piece of knitting advice that you've received over the years down in the comments. So I got some really good responses, like some really good actual advice, and then some really funny, like good answers that way. So go, if you haven't already scrolled through those comments, go back and check that out. But I will be back in a jiff. All right, I am back. So hopefully everything looks pretty much the same here. I did random comment generator, and the winner is Apple Picansos, and she said that the worst piece of advice she was given was to give up, and that is some terrible advice. She did mention that the person was joking, but still. So thank you guys again so much for entering. Apple Picansos, go ahead and get in touch with me. Drop a comment here or contact me on Instagram or Ravelry if you have it. If you don't have either one of those, just leave me a comment and I will get you the email address to get in touch with me so I can get those lovely skeins of yarn out to you. All right, so that does it. Again, thank you guys so much for joining me. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. It really helps grow the channel, and I hope that you guys will join me again in a few weeks for another episode. I hope that all of your knitting is bringing you joy, that you actually have knitting mojo right now. I will see you guys again soon. Bye. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.